Let's do this logical reasoning question, huh? This is from
Yeah,
test 73, section 2, question 4. Why don't I read it?
sure.
So it says principle.
No,
Not
no,
as
it
in,
doesn't.
not as in, huh?
It doesn't say that.
Are we looking at
I mean, it
different
says
questions?
that, but it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything.
People get
No,
freaked out. I really want to offer this tip to people. When you see the word principle on the LSAT, just cross it out. It doesn't mean anything. It never has meant anything. It doesn't do anything. It has no function whatsoever. Just cross it out.
no, I usually tell people to replace it with rule, which is the same as I think it does something here in the sense that it tells me that they're almost certainly going to give me a fact. But I guess they could try to justify that
Well,
fact.
here it says principle in the passage, and then it says principle in the question. And if you
Yeah.
cross both of them out and literally don't read them, it does not change the meaning of the question at all.
Okay. So principal, not as in a person who is the leader of a
Principle.
school, but a rule or nothing, as you're putting it.
This is just, they're going to
So,
give us a thing, and they
yeah.
give us that thing, whether or not they say principle. All right.
Okay. Here's that thing. The executive in a given company whose compensation package is determined by advice of an external consultant is likely to be overcompensated. Okay, I'm just going to stop there. The sentence is not over, but really quick, we have an executive whose compensation package, in other words, basically their salary
Yep.
plus externals, is determined. So, in the case where it's determined by an external consultant, is likely to be overcompensated. So, their salary is going to be too high. Okay. If the consultant also has business interests with the company the executive manages. Okay, this is basically a principle or a rule. It's saying that if the consultant has business interests with the company and the executive manages those interests, then yeah, it's not really shocking that they're likely to the executive is likely to be overpaid if that payment is determined by advice from that very consultant. There's some clearly like some mutual benefits going on here, right?
Yeah, I really
Okay.
like that you stopped halfway through that. It's critical that you can't just get lost in the muddy waters, right? You're like searching for little bits of clarity there.
Yeah.
And eventually you unpacked it to realize, oh, so what we're talking about here is kind of a form of self-dealing where,
Yeah.
I guess theoretically, if a consultant, an external consultant, is going to determine how much the CEO should get paid,
Yeah.
well, let's make sure that that external consultant is really external. Because if that external consultant also has big business contracts with the company,
Yep.
well, then they could be overpaying the CEO because they think they're going to get better pricing on their contracts with the company.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't say those words specifically, right? It says business interests with the company.
But
But we can
yeah.
infer, we can figure it out using our outside background knowledge of the world. We can kind of parse what they might be talking about here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Um, it's just it's good you said that. Last night someone in class was saying, I really struggle with some of these logical reasoning questions, and they said I read them 3 or 4 times and I still don't understand them. And that right there was like the red flag. It's like, wait a sec. That means you're reading all the way through,
Yeah.
realizing you don't understand and reading it again. It's like,
Yeah.
nope, you got to stop. Even like a few words into a sentence. You don't have to finish the sentence to say, wait a sec, it's getting away from me. Let me figure it out and
Right.
then go from there. Okay, so this question says, which one of the following judgments conforms most closely to the principle stated above? All right. I I think this phrasing conforms most closely throws a lot of people off. And it threw me off for a while actually when I first started teaching the LSAT. It's like, wait, what am I exactly trying to find here. It's like I could find the answer, but describing it to other people was challenging for me. But I would say at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. Which one of the following judgments conforms most closely? In other words, which one of the following matches most closely to what we just said? Which one of the following is most supported by what we just said? Which we've simplified even further to which one of the following must be true. So
Yeah.
the long and short of all that is to say that if it says closely conforms, just ask yourself, okay, does this have to be true given what was said?
Yeah. It's either going to be a must be true question or a strengthen question. There's no such thing as a principal question. So it looks like this is a principal question, and you might think that there's a special strategy for a principal question, which is complete nonsense because they use the word principle, but you cross it out, it means nothing. All they said here is they gave a fact about what happens when executives in companies are compensated in this way, right? That's just a fact. And then they said, which one of the following conforms most closely to that fact? It's a must be true question, or we could call it a supported question, which is just a soft must be true question. But the point is nothing different, nothing extra. We want a straightforward application of this principle, this thing,
this rule. Come
yeah,
on,
and
just do it. I know you like it.
What we're looking for here is just straightforwardly an executive who's being overpaid because the consultant who determines the executive's compensation has some dealings with the company.
Okay. Answer choice A. So does this have to be true, or is this supported by the passage more than the other four answers?
It's like, is it a match? Is this what they said? Is this what they were talking about?
Yeah. A, the president of Trosco Corporation is definitely overpaid.
Nope.
Okay. So the passage said, or the principle or the rule said, is likely to be overcompensated. And this is way beyond that, right?
Question types matter.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I would obviously not read the question stem first. You have to understand what the fact is. We need to know what we're trying to match. But now that I know what I'm trying to match, and I know that it's a must be true question, I want boring, obvious, easy to prove answers.
Yeah.
And that word strength there, the definitely, is just going to conclusively make that wrong.
Yeah.
I cannot prove that this guy is definitely overpaid.
Yeah. Okay. Answer choice B. The president of Trosco Corporation is probably overpaid. Okay, that's the same as saying is likely to be overcompensated, since his total annual compensation package was determined 5 years ago when the company's profits were at an all-time high. Okay, there's no discussion here of, the outside consultant or the self-dealing. So although this certainly could be true, I don't have any reason to believe it is true on the basis of this rule.
Yeah, that's just not what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So it's out.
See, the president of Trosco Corporation is probably not overpaid. Okay, that's a false contrapositive. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. We know what is likely to lead to overcompensation. We have no idea what's likely to lead to undercompensation.
There could be a million different things that could lead to overcompensation besides the consultant. Whether or not there's a consultant, if there's not a consultant, then I have no idea whether this person is overpaid.
Yeah, this is confusing, sufficient for necessary.
Right.
D, the president of Trosco Corporation is probably overpaid. Okay, great. That's what we were talking about.
Now, what I need it to say is, right? Do you ever do this?
Sure, you can predict it, right? You need it to say that his package was determined or by advice of an external consultant who also happens to have business dealings with the company that the executive manages.
Yep.
Okay. Since the Trosco board of directors determined his compensation by following the advice of an external consultant who has many other contracts with Trosco. Okay. It doesn't say that this president manages these contracts, but this president is the president of Trosco Corporation, and this consultant has many contracts with Trosco. So it stands to reason that the executive manages them on some level.
It
So I
doesn't
would keep
matter,
that one open.
Ben. The fact didn't say that the man that there's two ways of reading it,
Oh,
but
that
the
the
way,
company that the executive manages
yeah,
versus the contract. Sure,
right.
sure.
So
Yeah.
then that's not even, that becomes not relevant. And then D, but
Yeah, it's
Ben,
ambiguous, right? Yeah.
here's what the student asks, the
Yeah.
novice asks. But Ben, it said business interests in the rule, and it says contracts. I didn't like D because of contracts.
Oh, you're so right. Well, obviously a contract is a form of a business interest. The LSAT does this all the time, right? They have a, like, I would call them an umbrella term, like business interests. And there are many things that can fall under that umbrella. And as long as it does, then that is going to apply,
Yeah,
right?
it's the meaning, y'all, that matters. Synonyms exist, and there are multiple ways of saying the same thing. And if you have many contracts with the company, then you have business interests with the company.
Yep, that's a form of business interest.
It's
Yeah.
this, it's two ways of saying the same thing. And students just shoot themselves in the foot because they go through here looking for contracts. I guess I just scanned it. It looks like E mentions the word contracts. And if that's the way you're playing the game, good luck to you. It is just, it's not going to work out. They're smarter than that.
Yeah, I mean, and the crazy thing about E is you wouldn't even have to get to the word contracts because it starts, the president of Trosco Corporation is definitely not overpaid. So it's
Mm.
too strong and it's confusing sufficient for
At
necessary.
best, it's
So
confusing sufficient for necessary. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Y'all, it's a shame. The answer here is obviously D. You you've got to slow down until the test gets easy for you. This
Yeah.
question is kind of long. I mean, the answer choices are really long, and people get intimidated. They think they have to go fast, so they skim it and they rush through it, and maybe they match up a couple terms. I like D because it said contracts,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, well, but okay, but you're just not understanding the meaning of these words.
Yeah.
D is so easily the answer. We stopped halfway through it and we were able to predict what the rest of D said. We might have predicted contract business interests, and instead it said contracts, but the meaning is the same, and that's so obviously the right answer. And if you're doing the test properly, this question, regardless of how much time it took, you should have been certain that you were picking D correctly before you moved on to the next one. This is low hanging fruit, and you've just got to make sure you get that low hanging fruit first.
Sure.